What's up guys, welcome to another range day. Today we're going to be shooting the legendary MP5. Guys, this is one of the most iconic firearms ever made, having been featured heavily in action movies and video games for the past 4 decades. I grew up watching this gun in some of my favorite movies, one of my all-time favorites of course being Die Hard, so the cool factor is really dialed up to 11 for me on this one personally. When I was a kid I loved action movies and video games, but I didn't really get into guns until I was an adult, and when I did, the first centerfire gun that I shot was actually a full auto MP5 that we rented from a local range, and it really hooked me immediately. Needless to say, the MP5 for me had always been kind of a holy grail gun that I wanted to own someday, and I can definitely say that it's been worth it and fully lived up to the hype. Now with all that talk about cool factor from use in pop culture aside, there's honestly a reason the MP5 is still so popular and sought after even though the design is nearly 60 years old. So the MP5 uses a roller delayed blowback action which was incredibly innovative when it was introduced in the 1960s and still has benefits over more modern styles of action in use today. The delay in the reciprocation of the bolt results in an extremely mild recoil impulse which helps keep your sights on target under rapid fire. It also makes the MP5 one of the absolute best 9mm suppressor hosts there is because the delayed blowback keeps the breech locked long enough to minimize the sound of the round firing from the ejection port. Most non-delayed firearms will exhibit what's called port pop when suppressed, so while the sound is significantly lowered by the suppressor at the muzzle, the sound at the ejection port will still be loud to the person behind the gun. A delayed action decreases port pop significantly and makes the MP5 one of the most comfortably hearing safe 9mm suppressor hosts with good ammo. Now aside from the roller delayed action and its proficiency as a suppressor host, one of the most commonly known intricacies of the MP5 is the reload process, which will typically see the user locking the charging handle back, stripping the magazine, locking in the new magazine, and then giving the charging handle a good slap to put the bolt into battery. This feature, or quirk really, of the design is so well known that it is commonly and affectionately referred to as the HK slap, and it's just one of the many things that really adds to the infinite cool factor of the MP5. Now specifically what I have here that we're shooting today is an American-made MP5 clone from PTR called the PTR 9CT. I purchased it over 3 years ago and it's run flawless for me from the beginning. Now there are several clones out there with varying degrees of quality, but the good ones are barely distinguishable from the legitimate HK SP5 that was released long after I'd already purchased an SBR'd mine. The biggest differences are that the PTR has a welded-on Picatinny rail for optics, which I personally do like, and the PTR can also accept a full auto sear, which is uncommon amongst both clones and legitimate HK products, so that's a really cool bonus. I'm not personally rich enough to own a full auto sear, but who knows, maybe someday. As for the modifications I made, there really aren't too many, honestly. I have 2 handguards that I run in this gun. Primarily what I use is this B&T tri-rail handguard, which allows me to mount accessories like this no-name, low-profile HK-style vertical grip, and today I'm actually going to be messing around with a Holosun LS117G green visible laser, just for fun. I honestly almost never use lasers, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to mess around with it today since the MP5 is such a tactical legend. Now when I want something more traditional, I use a standard wide handguard like the one that you see here. Then for an optic, I'm running the Holosun 503GU. This is one of my go-to optics that I put on a lot of my guns before it was discontinued. It has basically a lower 1/5 co-witness. I can see the irons through the dot, but just barely. I really love the MP5's diopter sights, and I like being able to co-witness and reconfirm optic zeros, so it works well enough for me. I replaced the rear receiver push pin with a QD sling pin from HK Parts, which I use to attach my Savvy Sniper sling. And lastly, I have an ATI A3 F stock. I really would love a standard A3 stock because I think that's the most iconic looking stock on an MP5, but those have sadly gotten prohibitively expensive, and I got a good deal on this one, so I just kind of went with it. I honestly haven't shot it too much with the A3 stock, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes today. Prior to getting the A3 F stock, I had previously been running this basic A2 stock, which is generally considered one of the more comfortable stock options for the MP5, and I definitely like that a lot too. Lastly, I have my Dead Air Wolfman that I'll be running in both short and long configurations today using the trilug attachment. Alright, so that's what I got going on with my MP5, guys. I'm super excited, so let's hit the range and have some fun. Alright guys, I want to show you a comparison of supersonic ammo unsuppressed compared to subsonic ammo suppressed with the Wolfman in first the long configuration, and then I'll cut to the short configuration. So let's start off with unsuppressed. Okay. We'll attach the Wolfman. Suppressed. Guys, this gun is absolutely amazing. I'm totally in love with it. The recoil impulse is so soft and unique. The bolt is literally moving on rollers, so you can almost feel that action while it's reciprocating. The delayed blowback is definitely noticeable over a direct blowback gun, and there's a very tiny feeling of delay in the recoil impulse that's really cool to experience. Although the trigger is a lot heavier than many other PCCs, it's still a lot of fun and it works well enough. It definitely helps that the recoil is so manageable, so the trigger doesn't really get in the way as much at that point. I definitely can't emphasize enough how soft the recoil impulse is. It is definitely the softest recoiling 9mm platform that I have. Now, suppression wise, the MP5 is an absolute dream, and I think most people would agree it's the undisputed king of 9mm PCC suppressor hosts. I would argue that the MPX and even the CMMG Banshee are close, but the MP5 does still come out on top for me. One slight caveat to that is that with this barrel length being a little bit longer, just over 8 inches, it does increase the velocity of your ammunition, and so depending on how fast your ammo is moving, by the time it exits this barrel, it might not be subsonic anymore, so that's one thing to keep in mind with longer barreled PCCs. On the flip side, something like an MPX or an APC 9K that has a 4.5-inch barrel, that won't go supersonic as easily, but the other issue you would run into there is that you might not reach full powder burn, so it's a give and take. I actually really enjoyed the A3F stock today. The length of pull is about an inch longer than what I'm used to typically, but once I got used to it, I found it to be very comfortable, and the lack of a cheek recoil really doesn't bother me so much when the recoil is this mild and manageable. Once again, the ETS Group mag loader really helped make loading these mags fast and easy for the day. Although I am honestly completely infatuated with the classic wide handguard look, I've got to say this B&T handguard is really nice. I like being able to mount accessories to it, and I love having a vertical grip on it. It just makes it so easy to control. It's insane. So guys, this was really my first time shooting with a visible laser for more than just a couple of shots, and I gotta say, man, that was a ton of fun, honestly. I think it really goes well with the MP5 aesthetic. It's just an interesting way to change things up at the range. I definitely wouldn't say that this Holosun laser is anywhere near as good as maybe say a Perched 4, but for range time and just having some fun, it's definitely a blast. Now, as far as the manual of arms goes, that's where the MP5 technically falls short compared to more modern platforms. It's undeniably cool and nostalgic to lock back the charging handle, swap magazines, and then give it that old HK slap to put the bolt into battery, but it's definitely a less efficient system when compared to more modern platforms like say the MPX or the APC or even the CZ Scorpion, which does have a bolt release lever. Honestly, while those intricacies of the manual arms could be perceived as a negative, I kind of view them as a positive because it's super nostalgic and super interesting and fun to run this gun once you get going with it. Another reality of the MP5 is that it has the most narrow mag well. If you're not dead on, then you're going to fumble that reload. And so that's something that really takes a lot of practice to get right. Something like an MPX or the APC 9 with a flared mag well really helps when it comes to reloads. Now, despite those intricacies, I still think the reliability and quality of an MP5 would still make it a strong choice for a home defense weapon, with the caveat there being that you're really going to have to put in time and training on the range if you want to get proficient with it. For most people, I think something simpler and more modern would probably be a more sound decision. Now, that said, as a fun range toy, few guns are going to turn as many heads at the range as a nicely appointed MP5. Everyone's going to want to shoot it because it's just simply one of the coolest guns ever made. And that's honestly a reputation that has been fully earned in its nearly 6 decades of dependable military and police service, as well as its massive influences on pop culture. Now, as I said before, I've had this gun for over 3 years, and it's been completely reliable for me. With that being said, today I did have my very first failures. I have put well over 1,000, approaching 2,000 rounds through this gun, suppressed and unsuppressed. I don't think I've cleaned it more than once, and I definitely haven't cleaned it in a couple of years. I had a couple of failures to feed today with flat nose rounds, and I know some MP5 variants and specific magazine combinations do have issues with flat rounds, so I'm not terribly concerned about that. It ran beautifully for the most part. I shot 350 rounds today, and I think I maybe had 4 failures to feed tops, and honestly, at least 1 or 2 of them might have been magazine related. I'm using Korean KCI steel magazines. They're not the best magazines, but they've been working great for me up until now. They are pretty dirty, so I might need to clean them up a little bit and clean the gun a little bit, honestly, as well. But considering the amount of rounds that I've put through this gun with no failures, I'm perfectly fine with that, and it really didn't hold me up that much at all today, so I'm very happy with it. All right, guys, if I haven't made it clear by now, this is easily one of my absolute favorite guns that I own. Hopefully, over the course of the video, you've come to understand a little bit about why. So that's going to be all for today, guys. We got a lot more videos coming up soon, including more range days and first shots videos. So remember to like and subscribe, ring the bell, stay tuned, and thanks for stopping by.